President for GITA North America. Today we're pleased to have with us Mr. Andy Lund from We Do IT. Mr. Lund is a 20-year veteran of the utility mapping industry with expertise in the separate but related fields of GIS, remote sensing, regulatory compliance, and CBYD automation. He's been involved with GITA since the mid-90s, more recently orchestrating a critical underground infrastructure protection track for the last 5 GITA conferences down under. In 2012, he joined We Do IT, an Australian company with a wide variety of offerings in the utility GIS space, from consulting to conflation, both software and services, to mobile and tablet computing, to name just a few things. He's responsible for growing We Do IT's business in America, and he's based in Miami, where he lives with his wife and a pug. Andy really got to get a bigger dog.
I have a bigger dog, but I remarried.
This abstract reads as follows. The number of mobile devices in circulation has now surpassed the world's population. The rapid acceleration in the iOS, Android, and Windows 8 consumer device uptake has resulted in tablets becoming popular for utility and telco field use. MIL Standard 810 certified cases transform consumer class tablets into fully ruggedized yet lightweight tablets of 10% of the legacy ruggedized tablet cost. And the new benchmark requirements for mobile GIS are data interoperability, hosting flexibility, client choice. And if I could ask folks as they come in, please mute your phones. The new benchmark requirements for mobile GIS are data interoperability, hosting flexibility, client choice, and on-offline omnipresence. Mobile GIS are not just mapping anymore. Complex business use cases require a powerful geocentric mobile integration platform to any other enterprise information systems, such as ERP, CIS, OMS, DMS, Smart Grid, and B2B. They enable the spatial enterprise. My goodness, that's some acronyms. The presentation concentrates on educational, business, and technology benefits over commercial considerations. So again, I bring you Mr. Andy Lund, and we're very pleased as a nonprofit organization to bring you professional education like this. We'd strongly encourage those listening in, if you're not GITA members, please do join our organization. Among the other benefits, we have created a system whereby we can log you listening to webinars like this and provide you a record to provide for your GISP or professional development proof to your boss, things like that. We got a lot going on. So if you're interested, please do continue to support us and visit gita.org and become a member today. So without further ado, Andy, it's all yours.
Well, thanks so much, Talbot, and thanks to all of you for spending some time with me this afternoon. We really much appreciate that, and Talbot, I appreciate all that you've done and all that GITA has done for me and us, both past, present, and future. So with that said, a little bit of add-on to the background. You pretty much covered it all. We Do IT is a Melbourne-based company. In fact, I'll page down. All those dots are where we are, based out of Melbourne, Australia, but offices in Europe and India and, well, here in North America as well. And if you see that little red dot on Miami, well, that's where I'm talking to you from. So today we're going to talk about the role and the impact of tablets and other mobility solutions on the geospatial business practices, with kind of a focus on utilities, but not exclusively. So as you can see, or well, as you can see from walking around the streets, you see a lot of tablets and smartphones out there. So we've really come a long way, and it's kind of interesting that we've come, well, all the way from tablets to tablets. So the question that's come up more recently is this tablet thing a tool, a toy, or both? Well, as it turns out, they are in fact both. But for today's purpose, we're not going to play Angry Birds or Fruit Ninja. We're going to look at the tool side of tablet and GIS mobility. So as Talbot mentioned, and we've done some research on this, the number of devices out there on the planet have actually exceeded the number of people on the planet. there's one guy and a cow, and you can find things ranging from 600 all the way down to 40. There's a company called Data Wind out of India that's developed a $40 7-inch tablet that I don't know how to get a hold of it, but maybe a good, looks like a good value at 40 bucks. So I'm going to tweak Talbot's number a little bit. We think that's a little bit of an overshot, actually, and I must apologize ahead of time. We have a penchant for acronyms and are quite guilty frequently of unsupported acronyms. I will do my very best to support all the acronyms that I set forth in this presentation today. But if I don't, please feel free to ask me to flesh them out at the end of the show. So it's no longer really good enough. We've all been in GIS, or most of us have been in GIS a while, and getting GIS out into the field isn't entirely new, but the processes for doing so, let's back up a little bit, were limited to not particularly portable means. I actually cut my teeth, if you will, on this guy right here, where we were back in the mid-90s, we were putting DGNs on a lunchbox computer that sounded like a dishwasher for Sprint in Florida. So getting GIS out into the field isn't a new concept. What's become more of a new concept is getting well, I'll call it IT, not just GIS, but IT, which in a sense GIS is a subcomponent of, and to support that, swinging back to the presentation, to support that cost argument where what we're replacing, or what's being replaced by tablets, is the ruggedized laptop at a cost of several $1,000s, when you can get a tablet for anywhere from 200 to 600 in any number of cases. I've listed a few of them here to make it ruggedized. And of course, there's also the matter of, yes, laptops are in fact portable, but you don't always have a lap to put them on. If you look at this fellow in the bucket, he really doesn't have a place to put a laptop, and there's not always a truck hood to lay a laptop down onto. So tablets have kind of made it much easier to mobilize your workforce. So when I say getting IT out there, it's not so much anymore just getting GIS out there. It's kind of we've been there, done that, and that's evolving. It's more about getting business process related information out into the field and collecting business process related information and getting it back into the office. Some of these systems that are headed out into the field with GIS are work management, asset management, enterprise resource planning, enterprise asset management, and plant maintenance are the three there. Plant maintenance can often refer to inside plant, as in that drill press or that manufacturing line, but in the utility space, plant maintenance can include outside plant as well. Other processes include audit inventory audits in the power industry. There's pole audits and attachments and such. There's outage management, 811, which is the CBYD, call before you dig, now known as 811 for the last couple of years, since someone dug up a cable in one of the FCC fellas' yard. So that's where we got 811 from. So here's kind of a look at the overarching GIS component to everything. All of these systems, and that's outage management, customer information systems, business to business, and I'm not actually sure what DMS stands for. Maybe someone else can help me with that. Craig, are you on? Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got everybody muted.
Okay, no worries. I'll have to stand guilty of not expounding on the DMS acronym. So suffice to say, in the utility space at least, and in many other areas, there's a strong spatial component to a lot of business practices. So here's a couple of them. I'm not gonna read these off to you because I don't like the reading off the slide technique. It's kind of boring. I'll let you guys have a second to read those, and then these two. And really what we're going to focus on is these ones in the red here: asset inspection, maintenance, repair, other such things. that aspect. But there's a lot of different business processes that are going out in the field on tablets these days. So what you face, though, in adopting tablet technology is kind of a device dilemma. As we mentioned earlier, there are a lot of tablets out there. So one technique, and some folks are doing it, is just bring your own device, whatever you have. Whether you have an Android tablet or you have an iPad, or maybe you're really cutting edge and have a Surface, Windows 8 unit. Just bring what you have and we'll use that. That does, I guess, eliminate some of the upfront costs, but it also can come back around in the end to cause additional headaches. So the other side of that is a standard or mandate. I do know companies that are, we are iPad, period, that we're not looking at any other devices. I know companies that we are Android, period, and we're not looking at any other devices. That creates a little bit of additional upfront cost compared to a BYOD method, but it can eliminate the back-end need to support, and that's kind of the downside con to bring your own device, the need to be able to support 3 separate operating systems. So really, and I say pick your poison in here because, well, all of them are a little bit poisonous, to me at least. I'm not a huge fan of iOS because I'm a software tinkerer. I like to look under the hood. I like to see what data is where. And iOS doesn't really like to let you see anything inside. It's a black box. It's got an icon on the screen, and you press the icon and do stuff. So beyond that, good luck. With Android, it's kind of the opposite. You can look under the hood. You can go in and see where all your apps are and what data is contained in the apps, and in some cases move them to other storage locations onto the device. And so that's another approach. The downside to the Android system and kind of the upside to the iOS system is I'll call it, I don't know, fixed versus no. The iOS platform is a fixed target to shoot at. As a company that develops software, we actually have painful personal experience in this, in that we attempted to do all at once and just in one particular tool and then publish them out to all separate operating systems. Well, that didn't prove all that effective because the iOS stuff didn't look like iOS, the Android stuff didn't look like Android, and so we kind of backed up and rethought it and have gone kind of a one-by-each approach. So the last but not least, a strong up-and-comer is Windows 8.1, and we think it's going to make a very strong showing in that the vast majority of the business world is on Windows, although we're following, I guess, the same curve as the rest of the world in that the last platform we developed for was Windows 8, and that's actually coming out in a month or so. But the other question that's related to the OS question is applications. What are the applications you want available for the platform you want? In that there's some things that are available for one and not others, and there are some things that are available for all of them. So you really have to, that's one of the considerations to make. Probably the biggest consideration of all, at least cost-wise, is the total cost of ownership. Obviously, you're going to have some upfront costs, which will be lower in a bring your own device and higher in a standardized, mandated device scenario. There's going to be differing costs of usage over time, depending on your application, what kind of data do they use and what kind of bandwidth do they occupy, and how much data is going to be transmitted. And although there are some places in the consumer world where you can get all-you-can-eat data plans, I have one from Sprint. It's hard to find an all-you-can-eat data plan in the business world. So it is an important consideration is how much data is going to be exchanged. And in the world of GIS, which, as I mentioned earlier, all of these business processes wrap around, GIS data can be pretty big and can run up your data plan cost pretty quickly. So with that said, and the question about apps, we have a kind of pardon the turn of phrase, app apprehension, in that indeed there is some device dependency as to what you can get in terms of apps. Also, Does it run on one? Does it run on all of them? It needs to be an application to have universal appeal. It's going to need to run on all three platforms. It's going to need to be, and I certainly don't mean this in an offensive sense, but it needs to be kind of dumbed down and simplified. Complex software out in the field has never fared very well, so not only does it need to be kind of simple and streamlined, but it also needs to have a familiar look and feel. Folks are used to what iOS platform looks like, and folks are used to what Android platform looks like, and eventually folks will be used to what the Windows platform looks like. So not making folks learn a lot or learn a lot new is going to increase the uptake speed. Obviously, if you're looking at multiple practices or processes, you may also be looking at multiple formats of data that you're trying to get out into the field, besides GIS. And of course, you're going to have your GIS format, be it Shape or Intergraph or Bentley or what have you. Small World, any of those common GIS platforms, but you'll also have ancillary data, vector drawings, PDFs, perhaps even motion files. And data can be pretty much anything, and if you need it out in the field, you need a mechanism to get it there. The other requirement is connectivity agnostic, let's call it, in that an application needs to be able to function either online, offline, or sometimes both or neither. So if you have an application that doesn't work unless you're hooked up to 4G or Wi-Fi, that may prove problematic. So another question that always comes to rise is security. What kind of logins are there? What kind of encryption is used? Are there kill switches and such where you can disable a device remotely should it fall into enemy hands? Does the application enable a business process, or is it just a simple get your GIS application out in the field, a simple viewer? And then, as I mentioned earlier, simple viewers are kind of, I guess, passé. It's been there, done that. So, and a secondary question or issue there is interoperability. How does it play with other residents of the tablet? Will it talk back and forth with, and that's pretty much a key to interoperability. You may have, for instance, a work management system, I'll say that for my own convenience, that needs to interface with GIS. So there needs to be some interoperability if you're going to get all of this information out there and then collect what you want to collect and get it back into the office. And then last but not least, and this is more of a management side issue, is configuration. How do I set up, how easy or hard is it to set up users? How easy or hard is it to generate the data that needs to go out into the field to create notifications, work orders, etc. So with that, I'm going to hop out of this, and please forgive me because I'm like the Phantom of the Opera here. I've got three screens. I've got my laptop, I've got my iPad, and I've got my Android all sitting here, and I'm doing my very best to manage all of them. So we'll start with, there we go. We'll start with the Talbot, can you see that in its entirety? Sometimes my screen cuts off.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, yeah, there's a scale at the bottom left. That'll indicate that you're seeing all of it. Okay, well, with that, we'll just assume we are. We'll prove now I just turn the tablet sideways so that we can prove that it's not just me dummying something up on a laptop. We'll go with the sideways route. The first thing we'll do is we'll just go somewhere else. And then I'm just going to go from side to side here and explain some of these icons. This is just one possible piece of tablet software. So with this one, this is the home button. It takes you to your defined home screen, which we'll see later in configuration is either set up by a fixed rectangular polygon or a Find Me style GPS point. Also, what layers appear as a default are also configured on the front end. So when you open up, you open up to we could just call this an electricity application because all I see is electricity here. But there's more to it than that. So let's go. First of all, we're going to turn on this land base here, And a quick explanation of what we're seeing here. If you're seeing this menu roll up and down, up and down here, the top portion of the menu are overlays or layers, data that sits over top of the land base or base map layers. And typically, these are locally resident, so that I do not need to be connected to see this information. I am connected now, or I wouldn't be able to show satellite imagery like I'm going to in just a moment. So these are all the possible layers that can show on this map, and for now, we're just going to look at all of the utility layers, which would be, which are all of these folks here. One thing I'll quickly do just to get it out of the way. If you notice the arrow button 5 in from the left, pointed kind of top right. If I touch that's a find me button. In other words, center the screen on where I am. So if I do that, oh my heavens, I'm lost, he said in a very canned fashion. Well, the reason I'm lost is I was using this particular base map, and one of the things that is done is base map is a set of base map information is carried along offline so that you don't need to access, for instance, Bing aerials. But if you see, as I turn on Bing aerials, now, not that you should care very much, but that is where I am sitting in Miami. So we'll turn that off and go back to, and I did forget to mention, this area is I'll back away and we'll be able to get a better feel for it. This area is in southwestern Australia, near Melbourne, and it's roughly right up this way. So this is our, what I would call, sandbox, in that it's designed to kind of be our place to play around and see how things work. So when I show you the configuration for this, it's kind of cluttered and cloudy because we're very busy in this area doing all kinds of testing and adding new layers and subtracting layers and interfacing layers and such like that. So with that said, we'll look at one particular layer, that being the water layer right here. And with that, we'll do a couple of quick examples of what we've said earlier in terms of getting information out and getting information back in. I'm going to look for a water valve real quick. You know where that is. And then with that water valve, I can, if I want, there's an inspection form where I can record certain other inspection forms where I can record information and send it back to the office. So we'll also look for a hydrant. That's going to be the same kind of thing. There's a hydrant down here. Same deal with that. I've got a hydrant form that I can fill out and return to. And these are just generic forms that are. This is kind of designed to show everything to everyone. So if you were, for instance, a power company, you really wouldn't care about a form for hydrant inspection. So let's see. The other thing I wanted to do here in water is we'll just grab us a meter here. And as you'll notice, when we grab these things, I should have stopped for a second. Some of the attributes about the asset that I've selected are shown. What I wanted to exemplify here is, if you notice where it says reading at the bottom right, that is actually for meter reading. And really what this is, and I'm going to touch it right now, it's a placeholder for another application. In this case, it's just a placeholder, but it might be a meter reading application, or it might be a field inspection application. It could really be anything else, and we just, we'll switch back. I just wanted to mention, when we talk about interoperability, that's the kind of thing we're talking about, is being able to talk back and forth with applications that require GIS data. So now we're going to look at something else real quick. Let's look at power. And if I can find it, I should know. Yeah, power, electricity. I'm good at this. So we're going to quickly pick a pole. Easy for me to say. Peter Piper picked a pole. So here's a poll, and this is an actual, someone asked us to do this. If we want to do a pole inspection, I've got all of these. I just opened up my pole inspection form. It told me which pole I'm looking at, and I can start collecting information about that pole and what's attached to it, and if there are meters and what phasing, and that kind of thing. So this is just another example of getting information back into the office from the field through a form like this. So we'll go over a different angle now. We'll look at another interoperability and what we did, and this is just an example of one possible way of doing it. Is we decided to interface with SAP, and of course not everyone has SAP, but it's a fairly robust, large enterprise resource planning, enterprise asset management, plant maintenance, whatever you want to call it. It's got a lot of acronyms that go with it. So, excuse me. So when I'm looking at this poll, I'll go to a different poll. It really doesn't matter. But I have got a place where I can say, okay, I'd like to submit a notification, either a malfunction or a maintenance request. I'm not going to send these because this is dummy data, so we'll get back out of that. But I will later on pick up and kind of show the in-office side of this enterprise resource, the SAP application. So for a moment there, we'll slip back to the PowerPoint presentation, because here's, if we look here, right there, that's an actual screen from SAP. And I don't know if you can see the numbers, but those numbers are, and I'm a little bit ahead of myself. Let me get this guy back up here. My apologies, like I said, I'm a plate spinner and I dropped one of my plates. I've got this collection of orders here. And if we look, we can see that there is an order for this particular pole right here. So, and also I've got a collection of now my attribute information has increased, in that I have attribute information from the GIS, and then I have attribute information coming out of the plant maintenance enterprise asset management system. So now we're going to go, actually, pardon me for sounding Monty Python, but now for something completely different. We're going to go away from here. We're actually going to go to a little bit of what I'll call small world integration, because that's a possible GIS out there. You see me swiping away, pulling back from Australia here. We're going to go down to a little island. And Talbot, stop me if I ever end up blanking out, because I'm trying to look at 3 or 4 screens at once here, and sometimes I miss stuff. So now we're going to move down to, this is Phillip Island, and this is a collection of data that came out of a small world system. What you saw prior was kind of a melange or a hodgepodge. Some of it came out of Esri systems, some of it came out of Intergraphs, Bentley, MicroStation. Some of it came out of small world, but this is an entirely small world area. This is the SBA AusNet, actually. So we'll zoom in here and turn on MapQuest, because it looks much like what we'll see on in the PowerPoint, just to make it look familiar. We'll get in here to this southern tip, this nice little park down here, and grab this transformer. Oopsie, nope. Grab the line instead. And now, oh, I'm sorry, I'm substation. I missed my terminology there. So now that we'll move this down, back this out for a second, and now we'll say, okay, now I'm looking at actually a work order system where I've got a maintenance request for this particular substation right here that we're looking at on, let's see, not that, but this. So now once I'm here, excuse me, for a minute I just want this to look a little bit cleaner. Okay, that's good. Once we get here, we can actually drill down further into the schematic for this area. This is another layer of information we're carrying along. And then we can also, we'll go back to the map, we can also get even further and drill down, if it will allow me to select this again. Let's move it around. Sometimes it can get sensitive. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, well, let's go back home. I was going to actually attempt to go in and show the inside of a switch there, but the software decided it didn't want to cooperate, so we'll do something a little bit different. We're going to go into power here, back into the power here, plain old power, not SAP power. And we want to look at, first of all, we want to look at something I did prior, which is I did some, hold on, let's ground myself again. We're moving past now. We've talked about all the different layers and how different base maps can be chosen, and the need for a offline base map, so you're not reliant on a connection for Bing or Google or here or any of those online base map providers. Additionally, those what we found, and I didn't know this until I got into this space. I always thought Google Maps were free. Well, they're not if you're going to try and use them professionally. So that's part of the lure to having offline base maps as well as online base maps. So that's it. Now we're going to look at redlining real quick. Something I did earlier in the day, just for exemplary purposes, I said, okay, I want to put in a new meter. So this is the red line I drew earlier in the day. So I'm going to cancel that. What I really want to do is draw a different red line and say, we're going to circle this meter right here. And we'll say, meter needs replaced. Replace meter. Done. Replace save. So now if I go and look in there, and I will have the wrong one there. There we go. That's the red line I just drew. And what happens with these, and we've run into what I'll call philosophical dilemmas, is do you want to have edits done directly to the data in the field, or do you want rough draft edits made and then those edits incorporated into the data later? That is kind of a company by company policy, and in some cases people want direct editing capability for their GIS data and some don't. So we try to accommodate either way. We're more about, we believe more strongly in redlining just because it adds a layer of I don't know, security of the data, not so much security, but integrity of the data. We'll move on past that. We can do, this is a pretty simple thing, measurement. You can see as I tap around, if you look at the top right there, we can see the lat long coordinates. I'll do a quick straight line measurement or curved line measurement. Notice that this is in meters. Well, that's because we're in Australia at the moment. I will return to the United States in just a second as fast as I can because I'm running short of time here, and Talbot gave me about 40 minutes and I'm almost there. So the other thing we can measure is area of a space. So now I've got that area measured, cancel that. So now that we've done that, I'm going to change hats here and turn this into a different application, in that we actually have this configured to be a fire management application for the Central Fire Authority in Australia. We'll turn on some of the things that go with that, and we can see where now if I back off, we can see exactly what went on here. All the red dots are addresses from Australia's addressing convention. These solid black lines here are fire perimeter polygons, and I can actually go look at related information from that, and then actually need to get rid of it because I don't want to look at it anymore. So, so now we can get back to home here. Sorry, when I do that, it it turns back to the defaults of electricity and SAP. So my apologies for that. So the other thing we're looking at here is the documents that you might want to bring with you out in the field, like a plan for a evacuation point. This so happens to be a kindergarten where one might evacuate should one need to in the case of a fire. We don't want to look at that either. We also have, let's see if I can get in here closer and turn on. So we've got these are just address IDs here. Somerville and then Edward here. There, so that's what I'm looking for. Sometimes it's hard to find these things. This is a site data plan. It's mix and match stuff. This is for the fire, actually for a fiber rollout in Australia, but we had put it in here as part of the fire demonstration. So this is where this application can change hats. It's not only or speaks to application flexibility in that it could work in fire as well as utility. So for my last act, I'm going to return to the United States, and we'll look at the lovely town of Hollywood, Florida. And I'll move that up to center right there. And we can see kind of the same thing where I've got a number of different, I'm sorry that's smaller, but I really can't change the size of it. We see the same thing going on here, a number of different layers to choose. But really what I wanted to close on here was a quick trip to the beach, because it's getting to be season. We'll go to one of my favorite spots on this map. We'll go to Surf Road right here. And then we can quickly say, all right. And there I am on Surf Road. So there's everybody has gone to the beach now. So now I will close off with, I'll get rid of this and go down here. Here's a real quick, how does everything flow? Where I'm sorry, I'm using a product name here, but it's got a name and I can't help but use it. The software creates tiles and databases out of the GIS, passes those to a server, which in turn end up out in the field on a touch client. So that's kind of quick and simple how it works. Red lines are created out in the field and they come back to the GIS. So that's pretty simple there. And then last but not least, we'll look at real quickly, there is an administrative module that works with all of this stuff. And this is how, when I say, okay, here we are going to our home screen, and oh look, the home screen is, actually I think I prefer this guy right here, because that guy actually is what we're going to look at. We'll look at the home screen here, and then get rid of this. Sorry for being confusing. But so there's a number of different, and you can see where this is our sandbox. All of these are separate little places to play with data. And if we look at, this is the one we're currently looking at now, and if we slide this down a little bit like so, we can press the layers here and see that the layers here are the same as here. So this is where I was able to, and this is the kind of the guts of the thing. I'm going to get out of this screen so we can see everything. This is the name of the configuration. This is actually the real town of Hollywood, Florida, just to the north of me. What base layers we've selected to include in this portion, and then another where what layers of overlay data we'd like to include. And as you can see, I mentioned this is a kind of a play area for us. All the possible things. This is in Pennsylvania. Some of this stuff is in Queensland. So the other thing we look at is when I press the home button, what happens? Where do I go for my base map, and what layers are turned on? So if I do that for Hollywood and say home, I can see that all of the, we'll zoom in a little bit closer, I can see that all of these layers are turned on. Here, 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 and here. This is how often I'll sync if I'm connected. One thing to mention here is let me pull this up here, in order to initially retrieve data for the first go round and get updates from the GIS, there's a sync moment that happens from time to time. Can be daily, can be monthly. It all depends on how fast things change and how fast things need to be brought back to the office. And these things are all kind of company dependent. So what else do I have? Okay, here's where I can say, all right, I'd much rather have, I know there's somewhere in here, there's places where I can identify, hold on, I clicked administration, it'll take a minute for it to come back. So this is where I get to choose in the layers menu, I get to choose which layers I want to put in what demo. So these are all the possible layers I can put in anywhere. And so these are the ones I can pick. I can also add new layers if I want to. Feature links, that has to do with putting in the ancillary documents like PDFs and such that we saw, and external document calls and such like that. This is where I set up, this is where all the users get set up with administrative rights. That's me right there. I'm sorry for going so fast, but I'm over my time, so I didn't want to spend a bunch of time on this. So this is where we can put forms. Pretty much any forms creator, HTML5 will work. So this is where we can where forms can be added, but we're not going to add any forms today. And then last but not least, this is kind of a system generated piece of information that I don't even have control over. So when users are set up, these API keys are automatically generated. One thing I missed was for base maps that we have, we need to have a key to use them. So that's where the base map owners, if you will, the third-party licensors, that's how they get their revenue. So I believe, Talbot, that does in fact finish me off, and I would welcome any questions that folks might have at the time.
So Andy, good presentation, much appreciated, an interesting approach, and we can see that We Do IT has come a long ways with the Lat Longo platform, and really enjoyed your PowerPoint, which I think gets people thinking about some of the bigger issues that are out there. Some of the specific questions that came in were, what's your experience or any comments on the outdoor readability of tablets, or do you have even some specifications that folks could use in terms of, okay, we want to work outside, what do we need to ask for? How bright in lumens does this thing need to be?
Actually, I don't have an answer for that, in that our approach is whatever tablet you prefer, although that is an excellent question that I will now endeavor to get answered myself. We found that the iPad readability is pretty good, and depending on of all of them, but we don't have a particular manufacturer tablet we recommend.
Okay, and you were using your company's platform Lat Longo, correct, on the iPad portion of the demonstration?
Yes, that is the name of the tablet software that I tried not to show the name, but I couldn't help it. It's in there. It's in there in some places. But yes, Lat Longo is the name of the application. That it's kind of an overarching name, in that it's the name of the client application that resides on the tablet. It's the name of the server application that resides in, and of course we really don't care where the server is. Most of the folks we see really don't want to have anything to do with the cloud yet. The utilities, and I don't blame them, their information is sensitive and can be proprietary and can be dangerous in the wrong hands. they're kind of leery of the cloud.
And last question, just kind of big picture takeaway, what would you say are the main three concerns that folks should try to have addressed when they start to try to move into this mobile world? What are the big three questions they need to corner up and get a handle on?
Okay, probably the biggest one I can think of is the operating system. Do you want to go with a known iOS, Android, or Windows? And then forgive me, any BlackBerry users out there, we're kind of discounting BlackBerry as a handheld platform. And although this thing, this particular piece of software that I show you will run on a smartphone, it's not supposed to. We don't recommend it because there's a certain, I don't know, screen size requirement. Once it's the size of your smartphone, you really, and it's geospatial data, you really can't see that much at a clip. So first I would say is the tablet platform, whether you're going to go with BYOD or whether you're going to mandate an iOS. The second would be what applications are you trying to mobilize? Because that may affect the first choice. And then the third would be shop around for providers and see how best to get data out there and back, because that's one of those, you won't know it till you get into it. Costs. We have some folks that we work with that, although they do run this tablet application, they also have other clients that have online GIS access, and it just runs their data plan through the roof. So if you can find a data plan, so that would be my three: wireless communication method, application, operating system, applications, and communications.
Andy, that's fantastic. Again, on behalf of GITA North America, we really want to thank you for being willing to do this presentation for us today. I wanted to take a moment. I got a number of questions about the presentation itself. Is it being recorded? And absolutely it is. If you visit gita.org and click on our Learning Center, you will see there is a search function here, and this is just the easiest way to get to this stuff. You can come in, click on search, enter your keyword. Now, Andy's obviously isn't loaded in yet, but we could use the example, say, of elevation. So you, in this case, for Andy's, you'd click mobile, which would bring it up, and we actually parse the search results back for our members as documents, files and links, pages, and events. And events is where you're going to find all of the webinars that are being conducted as part of this series. So again, thanks, Andy. We appreciate your talk, and would encourage those to follow up with him if they'd like a little more information on mobile GIS integration with IT. And please do become a member of GITA. There's a lot going on here. We're growing quickly and have a lot of benefits for our members. So thank you very much, and this will end today's presentation.
Thank you, Talbot. Have a good afternoon, everyone.